Eventually. There we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another week here at Wired Differently. I'm super excited. As you can tell, we have our guest with us today, the amazing Kasim rhymes with awesome. Still love that little catchphrase. It's great. And we've got, of course, Victoria Caldwell, our fractional COO and expert of people systems, mindset, Melanie Branch, the expert at getting your brain to behave so you can do what you need to do as an entrepreneur. And Kasim, I met him years ago as my coach at Digital Marketer. That was just one of his many, many accomplishments, changing my life and so many others. And now he's doing it through his talent company, Pareto. So I'm like super excited about this. I'm going to just dive in, and I'm going to hand the mic over to Victoria to ask some questions today, because as our expert in people systems, I feel like she's the best qualified to pick Kasim's brain about delegating.
You know, I'm so excited that I don't even know where to start, because I get to talk about something that's so near and dear to my heart. So if I start fangirling, it's all good.
Here's your soapbox.
And I mean, the hair and everything too. The fangirling is on point. I mean, come on.
I moisturize. That's coconut oil.
Well, look, I've heard that's really good. Somebody told me that they use Pakistani, actually, and they have a full
that's exactly
hair.
that's I got it from my father's ex-wife. That's how I picked.
It's the coconut oil. So I never forgot that. Anyway, let's get into this. So Kasim, you started this new agency. Is it an agency, right? It's called Pareto Talent.
I think it's a recruiting agency-ish.
Yeah.
It's unusual and oh, I'm sorry, Victoria, I interrupted you. Forgive me.
No, go ahead.
No, so I want to apologize. I think I have a mild delay, and I'm normally not this rude. So if I interrupt you again, I'm gonna apologize in advance for every time it happens.
No problem. Just
There will be consequences. No, I'm just kidding.
Figured.
I mean, you are in a room full of like ADHD, autistic, etc. things. Interrupting is like normal in our world.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you for the grace and the forgiveness. The reason I hesitated when you called it a recruiting agency is because most recruiting agencies give you talent and then they drop them off at your front door, and then they say best of luck to you. You know, God bless. Maybe, hopefully, something good happens, and maybe not. We don't care. We got our money. And then
which is why I reframed it to say, "What would you call it?"
Well, I need your help, and maybe y'all can help me with this. We find the talent, but then we continue to manage the talent. And more than the talent, because you know who needs to be managed more than the talent is the entrepreneur.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So, like, usually when there's a failure...
Victoria, don't look at me like that.
Because entrepreneurs are these, shiny-eyed, absolute batshit insane, very, very aggressive, hyper-focused, and then not macro to micro, micro to macro, like non-stop, just crazy people. And I'm allowed to say that because I'm one of them. And working for people like us is a nightmare. It's why people need a Victoria. And so what we do at Pareto, we manage the relationship in a way that allows for a positive feedback loop. Now, positive doesn't mean good. So it's not you're just getting the good news. It means functional. So if the entrepreneur has a problem with the EA, or the EA has a problem with the entrepreneur, that information needs to find its way to the other person in a manner that allows for iteration, that allows for function. And the issue that I found with most entrepreneurs is either A, they're way too critical and they don't let anything get done. So it's like micromanage, must do it this way, et cetera, et cetera. And we have ways of fixing those people. Or B, and more likely, to be honest with you, this is usually the archetype, is they say anything, they don't provide feedback, they don't provide input, and then they let issue stack on stack on stack on stack on stack. And then one day they're like, this isn't working, you suck, I hate EAs, I'm gonna go do this myself. And both of those obviously are error prone and catastrophically so. And so we've built a system, and it's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. A system that allows for iterative feedback. And so as a recruiting agency, we would just be dropping somebody off in somebody's lap. But our hope is to provide, and incidentally, I'm not trying to pitch my agency, by the way. You don't need me to do this. So if you're listening, the real point, the take-home message is build a system that allows feedback that goes both directions. If you're a founder, business owner, entrepreneur, CEO, whatever, you need to constantly be asking. Build a culture of feedback. How am I doing? What can I do better? What can I do to make this a better job for you? What's not working? And you have to find a way to ask the question the right way, because the first time you sign my paychecks, everything's fine. Person who signs my paychecks, like, I'm not going to complain to you. So you start asking it in different ways. The way that I like to ask it is I force it. I say, if there was something we could do better, what would it be? Now you have to answer that. I'm not saying there is, but if there was, if just play a hypothetical game, and that culture of feedback puts you in a position to optimize. Now, the real key there, and this is a type of trust that has to be built, and you have very few opportunities to break this. Because if you break it too many times, people will never trust you again. When somebody gives you feedback, take action on it. Believe them. They're not going to like it, but they're probably right. And let them see you humble yourself and take immediate action, because guess what's going to happen? They're going to do it again. And then they're going to do it again. And then every now and again, and I've built the trust with my people to say this, I get to say, oh, you know what? I'm not going to do it. Why? Let me tell you why. I had somebody, we used to do these Friday all hands meetings at Solutions 8, the last company I sold. And somebody came to me and said, hey, boss, these are a big waste of time. You got almost 100 people on this call every Friday for an hour. I feel like this is a break in my day. It's way. This is one of my peak performers, hyper efficient person, just love to get shit done. And I was like, dude, I really appreciate the way 100 people on a call for an hour. That's an expensive phone call. Let me tell you why. And then I explained to him how important it is. People like him don't need team building as much as most people. And then we got to have that conversation. And once he saw the vision, he was on board. So that was a bit of a departure, Victoria. Forgive me, but that's now that I've gone all shiny object like, bring us back to center.
Kasim, let me tell you real quick. Again, I don't think Christina made it clear enough. You're talking to a bunch of Neuro-Spicy people, and we love a side quest, and we're usually pretty capable of getting the train back on the tracks and going on the side quests with you. So you don't have to apologize. We love all of the stories and all of the shiny objects. Keep them coming.
Side quests are the best part. It's where you get to have fun and then like come back and still get stuff done. It's great.
Right. We
love that.
I'm getting, yeah. So I got some questions for you. Delegation. I didn't your eyes got really big when I said that means you got a soapbox covered for us. Now, I'm a natural delegator. I've been delegating since I was probably 5, 6 years old. And that was kind of conditioned. It was not something when I grew up, it was not something that was welcomed. It was my natural gift. It was part of my gift, but it was like getting out of work to my family when they had all of this work. But I said, well, I'm going to be mediocre at that and best not having those words. Why don't I know this one is going to do this better. I will get it done. See, when I hear words like do this, I hear get it done. Now, why can you talk about the challenge with delegation for entrepreneurs and how to delegate more effectively?
Such a good question, because he does it so naturally somehow, or you've studied it really good somehow or something. It's not
for you to fit that mold and to be able to delegate so effectively. I'm extremely excited about it and curious at the same time. And of course, the all the other people listening to.
Yes, ma'am. I'll do my best, Victoria, because there's a lot to unpack there. If you don't mind, 3 very quick stories. I built the #1 ranked Google Ads agency in the world. We were, I think at the time of our sale, we were the largest dedicated Google Ads agency. We had 200 clients on $100 million in ad spend under management. I have, to this day, this campaign in my life. I wouldn't know how to. I built the highest performing real estate investment campaign on the planet. When I did that, I'd never done lead generation, and I'd never done real estate investing. I built an agency for Montessori schools. We have the #1 Montessori agency in the world. I'm not Montessori trained. I'm not any trained. I don't have a college education. And none of that is meant to brag. What all of that is meant to say is I am massively more successful than I deserve to be. Most really intelligent, really competent people are trapped in the confines of competence. Because in order to do anything, in order to fix a car, you got to be a great mechanic. In order to bake a cake, you got to be a great baker. In order to, P&Ls, you have to be a great CFO, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you are in this umbrella that is the architecture of competence. And the problem with being inside of any one of those entities is you're a part of the building blocks. And when you're a part of the building blocks, you can't build. So the key to thinking about delegation is somebody else is better than 100% done by me. Because as soon as I'm able to get myself out of the architecture, I can start to build. And I'm really proud of the fact that I, generally speaking, am the dumbest person that works for me. And this is one of the traps that people are going to get. Business owners, employers, I'll use that moniker. Employers are afraid of competence, and they don't realize that it's subconscious. It's very, very, very subterranean. I'm afraid of hiring somebody smarter than me, having to work with somebody smarter than me, having that person find me out, not being the smartest person in the room. I'm afraid to see what I'm doing and they steal my clients or steal my business or steal my employees. People think these things without even realizing that they're thinking it. I'm especially afraid of it along the levels, and this is going to get really dangerous, okay, this conversation, but we're going to go there, and then hopefully it opens some hearts and some minds, and everybody can trust my heart center when I say some of the things I'm about to say. I'm afraid of those things. This is where my prejudice exists. So if I'm a man and I encounter a really intelligent woman, the question then becomes, am I capable of seeing this person's prowess without being threatened by it? And I used that example because it's the easiest and most accessible, but take every layer and level at us and then apply that to the lens through which you look at people. And the reason I'm asking for this, and I found this out the hard way, God forgive me, the best people that worked for me, the most unrecognized talent in my organizations were female. And I'm not trying to play woke savior, y'all. I promise you, I'm not. Just a fact. And I figured out, I was reading this book and it said that a man will apply for a job when he feels like he's 70% capable. A woman waits until she's 100% capable. So what did that mean? You have all these men banging down doors saying, give me the ball, coach. And then you have all these gals that are sitting around like waiting to feel like they. So to do was, with that knowledge, the biggest, and the other thing too is men are more transient. The average male employee is going to stay with you for 18 to 24 months. The average female employee is going to stay with you for 36 months. So guys are constantly like, what's the next thing? How do I move? And it's, right, wrong, good, bad, stereotypical, sure, it's they have available to us. So what does that mean though? In the world where you want to delegate, in the world that you want to find people who are effective, in the world where you have your own preconceived observations about people and prejudices about people, paying attention to the data and then delegating according to how the data would inform is going to go, put you in a position to do things that other people can't do. Because if that's true for my organization, chances are that's true for everybody's organization. And incidentally, if you're a female founder, you're not above this. People are not above the prejudices for which they are also subjected to. And so I think that one of the most important pieces of delegation is where you're being myopic in scope, where you're not seeing opportunity, and where you are probably getting in your own way. Everybody that I hired was smarter than me along the level of analysis for which I hired them. Now, the way not to get usurped is process. Delegation assumes, effective delegation assumes you have somebody effective to delegate to. So many entrepreneurs and founders, anytime I hear anybody say like, oh God, no, I tried that. So hard to find good help these days. If you want something done, do it yourself, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Those people were probably delegating to the wrong person. And I can tell you how and why they do that. I see this all recruiting firm. They go to me and somebody will say, oh, I need somebody who knows graphic design, SEO, a little bit of automation, content creation, project management, customer service, and sales. And I'm like, great, you just defined an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs aren't hireable. Even the same human being in a different environment or role, you can't pay that. So go find, you need a graphic designer, hire a graphic designer. You can't afford full-time, go get somebody part-time. And then build yourself a world within which you can delegate. And I have a whole system, I have a whole theory. I have two frameworks, the black box of delegation and my soccer analogy, which y'all can help me with too. But I'm going to pause there because I covered a lot of ground. Did I say anything that was offensive? Correct.
Truthful.
Look,
so not offensive, but truthful. And it's the things that, we're all female entrepreneurs over here. We've experienced a lot of what you're talking about, right? We experienced it in corporate jobs. We've experienced it as entrepreneurs. We experience it when we watch our male counterparts soar past us faster than us. Most women
restaurant
don't really
industry.
experience. Yeah. Yeah, me and Melanie both have experience in restaurants and stuff like that too. So the inappropriate things that happen there are even worse. So yeah, we truthful.
Truthful. But respectfully truthful.
Yeah,
No
exactly.
lies detected.
And
And there was a lesson in what you did
compassionately.
too for our audience, because like you had the balls to step into a room with 3 very strong entrepreneurial women and say like, look, this is happening. Right. And a lot of people are afraid to do that. They're afraid to speak their truth in rooms where it's scary and terrifying, but it needed to be heard. So I also want our audience to learn from the example, not just the words.
Yeah.
Right. You can't be afraid to be you and stand by what you believe and stand by what has helped form what you're doing and what you're recommending, even if you're doing it in a room where it's scary. Right. All right. That was
Yeah.
my little interlude.
Yeah. So, I mean, I see when you speak, there's so much compassion and passion in what you're saying. So it doesn't come off. It's just real. Now, somebody else could say the same thing and it might not come off that way, but you can tell that you're very passionate about what you're doing and what you're saying, but also you're very compassionate in the process, and it makes a whole lot of difference. So, if you wanted to pause, we pause and you can continue, or if you want to fire because you were on a roll and you pulled yourself back.
Well, I had a point I was marshaling towards when you asked, how do we delegate? Very often, the delegation opportunity exists with a resource that doesn't necessarily see their own competence yet.
Right.
And so it's the reason that I brought up the idea that women can. My COO for Solutions 8, female, Leandra Green, brilliant human, one of the smartest people I've ever worked with in my entire life. The gal that runs all of my socials, Ari, our director of automations, Julianne, like brilliant people. In every instance, I needed to ask, and maybe cajole is a better word, them towards the role that they ended up being the most effective at. So when we're waiting for somebody to delegate to, entrepreneurs and founders tend to, because this is who we are as entrepreneurs, male or female, we're go-getters, right? So like, it's like, again, going back to that, give me the ball. Employees aren't that way. Employees, generally speaking, need to be told, hey, this is what I need you to do and how I need you to do it. And if we don't sense confidence, it scares us. Well, the confidence very often can come from us. And so part of delegating effectively is having the foresight to see, like this. Leandra was the best client manager that we ever had. Leandra was the newest client manager I had when I promoted her to the head of the client management department, above people that had been there for years before her. And then we promoted her, and then she became the C-level. And then when I left Solutions 8, she's who I recommended they make the CEO. They didn't, by the way. Should have. Because she's amazing. But in each instance, it had to be me coming to her saying, hey, I think you're going to be great at this for these reasons. This is what this new job looks like. Is this something that you're comfortable taking on? Another gal who used to work for me, she's one of my favorite employees of all time. Her name's Regina Bellows. Regina was the most contrary employee I've ever had in my life. She was anything that I said, she would challenge. Anything that I had, that she would question. She was constantly stopping communication. And it was so frustrating. But I'm old enough now, as a young man, I would have fired her because I would have thought, you're just insubordinate. As I got older, though, I realized, no, she cares. She cares, and she really wants to know. How unusual is that for an employee? And she won't do it until she does know. She won't do it until she understands. People that do a task that they don't understand are dangerous people. Because when something goes wrong, it's like, hey, I need you to take the fuel line and I need you to put the fuel line into the wall. And it's like, all right, cool, I'm doing this. And I'm going to put the fuel line into the wall. And for the first time ever in my life, I see a fire out there. And I'm like, don't know why there's a fire, but I'm going to keep doing my job and putting the fuel line in the wall, not even realizing that I'm fueling this new fire. As opposed to a Regina Bellows who says, why am I putting the fuel on the wall? Where does the fuel go? What happens if something goes wrong? So you have those employees that are asking those questions, and it's very overlooked competence. And our job as employers is identifying competence and then delegating to competence. The presumption behind effective delegation is you have somebody effective to delegate to. So if delegation fails, you're probably delegating to the wrong person, first and foremost. I need to be able to do my favorite example of all time. I made $250,000 in 3 minutes. I made $250,000 in 3 minutes. I had an EA who's now one of my best friends and probably the most amazing human I've ever worked with. His name's Yvonne. And Yvonne can do anything. And I made my exit, and the worst thing you can do for poor people is give us money, because then we right? So I end up with this big box of money from having sold this business, but I don't know what to do with it because nobody ever taught me how to use money. So I'm trying to be an investor, and I joined Justin Donald's investment mastermind, which was one of the best things I did for myself. Probably saved me from losing all my money. And what I learned is everybody in Justin Donald's investment mastermind was trying to buy self-storage facility. So I pick up my phone and I send a voice message. And I'm like, hey, buddy, I want to start trying to buy some self-storage facilities. Do me a favor, please, and build me the website, the CRM, the funnel, and all the ads that we would need to do motivated seller leads for self-storage facilities. It took me about 2.5 minutes to send that voice message because I described to him what it is I want. In a weekend, Yvonne built the website, the CRM, the intake, and all the ads. Me and my business partner in the self-storage facility space just bought a storage facility for $490,000 that's valued at $750,000. We've made $250,000 in net profit because I was able to delegate to Yvonne, who now Yvonne helped me build my motivated seller lead business through real estate. So I know he knew how to do that. This thing that if I had to do that myself, I never would have done. Ever, never, ever, ever. So you want the person that you can just pull up and be like, hey, Christina, we need to build a brand new brand just around this e-commerce store. It's going to be just like the one that you did last time, except do this, 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 and then go. And I call this the black box of delegation. If you can't comply with the black box of delegation, either the person you're delegating to is doing something wrong. The black box looks like this. I put something in. Here's the idea. Here are the resources. By the way, I'm willing to spend a couple grand on this, or feel free to peel off another employee, or feel free to go to Fiverr and stuff. So here's everything that you have. Here's what I want at the end. And make sure, by the way, that you're actually going to the end. Often entrepreneurs are like, well, I want a website that looks like this or feels like this. Stop that. Stop. What's the end? I want people who are willing to sell their self-storage facilities. However it is that you choose to accomplish that, God bless. Input, output. What happens in the middle? I do not care. And this is the most terrifying entrepreneur. And this is also where maybe I'm going to overstep my bounds, especially with branding people. So everybody get ready to yell at me. I don't care what the logo looks like. I don't care what the copy sounds like. I don't care what the voice is. I don't care. Don't care. Can I care later? Yes. Later. But first, input, get me an output. And then we can massage it. But when you sit there looking over an employee's shoulder and you're like, oh, the square should be a circle. Red should be blue. The line needs to be straighter. When you start doing those things, first of all, it's massively demotivating. Second of all, you're teaching them how to work. Shoulder, what do? They're like, oh gosh, should the square be a circle? That's the iterative process that you've established in your business. So black box everything. And I do this thing too, which is horribly obnoxious. And some of my employees have started to catch on. If you come to me with a question, even if I know the answer, I won't answer it. Hey boss, what do we do with the thing? What do you think we should do? What's right? Care. This is again going to get really combative and maybe a little, what would you call it? Quixotic. If you come to me and say, hey, should this be a square or a circle? And then I say, what do you think? And you say, I think it should be a square. Even if I know for a fact it should be a circle, and I know I'm going to change it to a circle later, I tell you to go with the square. Trust yourself, move, go fast, build the thing, get the output. Why? Because now you're more effective to delegate to. And then later I get to go in and I get to be like, oh, hey, red, blue, square, circle, change the fonts, great job, let's go. And now they're like, oh, bam, bam, bam. But they get to focus on they get to see the output. They get to see the things they built, and they get to feel a sense of ownership over it. As opposed to you seeing, then you did what? You made it yours. Black box of delegation. That's the idea. I'll pause there. Ladies, how did I do?
No, it's great. And it's so affirming because some of the things you mentioned are things that I do intuitively just because they just make sense to me. Like I don't try to box in a creator. Like I think that's the worst thing in the world that you can do. Because then they just, like you say, get demotivated. I want to see what you're going to output and then I'll come back. Now I might have specific guidelines in the process. But specific ones, if they're like critical, other than that, go forth and we'll come back to it later. But oh gosh, I have so many questions swirling around in my head.
I have a note. There's a really good way to start doing this as an entrepreneur if you don't have a team yet. So if you're still solo, you're still the one doing your socials, you're still the one doing your email marketing, you're still the one doing, if you're the one doing everything, You can just hop on ChatGPT and say, hey, I need a long caption for my TikTok video about this, and I want it to have bullet points, and I want this to be the call to action. And it'll spit that shit out, copy and paste that sucker over there, and put it out. If you are still trying to word by word write all of your stuff, we don't have the cognitive capacity for it. Christina and I talk about this all the time sitting at the Neuro-Spicy Academy. Did we really used to sit at the computer and write our emails word for word? Did I really? Were we expecting? Now my brain can't even do it.
No, you can't even do it.
Yeah, I can't either. And like I was a copywriter for like 15 years pre-AI. And like, so I was good at it. And now I'm like, I can't write a blog article without delegating to ChatGPT. It needs to get
you in the mindset of like, this is what I want done. Don't get too detailed with it, that sort of shit, because he already knows how you write, because we all have a relationship with chat now. But just say, this is what I want. And then it'll spit something out. And then, like you said, change this to this, change this to this, bing, bang, boom. But it's just so much easier, and you can have your mental capacity, which diminishes rapidly as the day goes on, everybody. Don't waste all your decisions on that. Make somebody else do it.
See, I'm sitting here thinking is like the one in the room that these two have to parent all the time and quit telling me to quit being a perfectionist and to touch everything. And I have the hardest time with the black box thing, to just like delegate something and leave it alone and not over, like, this is some design stuff I like. This is, and I'm sitting here thinking, like, where is
and then cries later, by the way, when she stopped doing it.
Like, where is that coming from? Because I know better. I've heard this. I've been taught this. I know better in my heart and in my soul. But then when I go to do it, it is like almost physically impossible to just put it in the black box and leave it alone. It's like painful to do. So like, where is that coming from? What do you guys, how do you get an entrepreneur to quit doing that even when they know better?
Well, I have a theory. It has to do with the paradigm. It's the uniform you're wearing. So if you're Christina Hooper, branding genius, which by the way, I worked with Christina. She was in my coaching cohort at Digital Marketer. Quick, another tangent, fun Christina story. And she joined late. So I have 20 people in this group, and I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm not a good coach, and I've never coached before, and I'm massively overwhelmed. And people start asking questions that I don't know the answer to. Christina starts answering them. And at first, I was massively threatened. I was like, who is this chick who thinks she's going to come into my group and start coaching everybody? Because that's my ego speaking. And then immediately afterwards, I was like, she's doing the job I'm supposed to be doing. This is like somebody asks a question. And more often than anything else, I was like, Christina, what do you think? And she ended up being, she was the superstar of that entire group. And there was this one moment, I know you remember this, Christina, because it was like magic for all of us. There was this moment where we had this, God bless their soul, just a person who couldn't, a nut that couldn't be cracked. Same questions over and over and over again. Every week they'd come back. They hadn't made any progress. They didn't take any action. And Christina, she asked me permission at the beginning of the call. She's like, hey, do you mind if I'm like, take it, run with it. And you have this recorded, don't you?
Yeah, I do have the recording. I have the little snip of your reaction to that on my website in my testimonial section. You were the first one to actually call me a business designer, not in those words, but you're the first one to do that. And now giving people a business in a box is what I do.
It was a masterclass and a breakdown. I've never seen anything like it. You got Victoria and Melanie, you both have to see it. It was unfreaking believable. And it was Socratic. They started with mess, gobbledygook, garbage. Nobody knew what the hell this person was even talking about. And Christina was like, and then she focused a little bit, and then it kind of became a cloud, and then the cloud became pixelated, and the pixel became a picture and objects. And then Christina started to, okay, well, this doesn't apply, this doesn't apply, this won't work. And then it got click, 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 click. And then all of us felt it. It was like, holy shit, what just happened? It was amazing. And the whole, it was on Zoom too, but it felt like we were in a room and the room went still because we can't believe. And I don't know, did they ever take action, Christina? Do you know, did they ever actually execute on it?
I don't know. And I think the saddest part of it all is I don't think she even understood what it was. She wasn't far enough along as an entrepreneur to really understand what we had just done. Even I didn't realize it until everybody else started reacting. And I was like, oh, okay. Cool. Because she was just asking for like the name of her challenge, and we ended up designing her entire business, and the whole thing was done in like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Like,
it was
completely done.
amazing.
Yeah.
Talk about women that was undervaluing
amazing.
herself. Like in those couple of questions, we discovered she had like a PhD and like all kinds of stuff. And she was sitting here just playing real small on like, I'm going to make a little challenge, a little 3-day challenge that had nothing to do with anything related to her skill sets, her, experience. It was powerful. It was powerful. I forget what our
I'll tell you what you did in that call, though.
And I get to see
That
that.
was-
But one of the things you mentioned too, Kasim, is a lot of times, especially in my world, but your world, all of our worlds, when you hire these people, a lot of times they don't know their own power. They don't know. I see it. You see it. I see it,
and we see it in the entrepreneurs too. You've got somebody who doesn't know what they're capable of delegating to somebody who doesn't know what they're capable of. Like,
yeah. And like, I'm constantly
blind.
reminding Christina of her brilliance herself. It's like a constant, like, you are brilliant. Do you know? And then I see her do this kind of stuff all the time. And I really want people to really benefit from the brilliance that she brings, right? So anyway, that is something that, entrepreneurs have to understand when they're hiring. Like, we have to, as leaders, instill that confidence in them. And part of it is by allowing them to do. One of the guys that, unfortunately he passed from COVID, but I didn't know I was doing this, but then I kind of like it. This was when I was very early. And I said, I would ask things. I said, is that hard to do? And he's like, ma'am, everything you ask is hard. And they knew that if they told me something could not be done, that was their new task. Because I'm
wow.
It can be done. You just got to figure it out. And so it took them a minute to figure out, don't tell me can't be done, because now that's your new task. If it can't be done, which it can be, I don't know how to do it, but I think you have the skills and the talent to figure it out. And they would always come back with it figured out. And it would be brilliant. And I'd be like, wow, this is awesome. But I didn't realize even at the time that was instilling such confidence in them, letting them know like, wow, I got this done. So I think,
I'm sitting here thinking about that black box question. Here's, I think, my challenge, the things I can't delegate and go hands off on. It's the things I actually enjoy, but I don't need to be doing.
It's when you're the artist. It's the frame it's the uniform you're wearing. So if you're wearing the uniform of artist and somebody shows you art, well, now we're going to get into it. I think, and I love what Victoria's saying, I think if you wore the uniform or mentor or teacher, now, and you know what, it can even be artistic coach, but instead of the piece of artwork being that which that you're working on, it's the person. And that becomes the fun game within the game. It's really helpful if people don't know you're doing that, because they start to feel a little objectified. It's the robots that we're tinkering with. And yet that's sort of what it is, because the game becomes, I wonder what it would take for me to get the output that I want out of this person. And I think the thing that we do wrong is we look at people as though they're commodities. And the whole world teaches us to do that. Every business book you've ever read in your life, commodity. And it's like, okay, all you do is you build a system and you put an easily found commoditized human being on this assembly line, and then they do the thing and go. And the commodity, if you look up the definition of commodity, is it's a good that's easily interchangeable. And people aren't easily interchangeable, obviously, right? Like, we know that. People are miracles. People are atheists. And you still have to acknowledge that the human being, like these really hyper intelligent chimpanzees running around building shit, like, this is unbelievable, right? Like, it's unbelievable. Everything amazing that's ever been done or ever will ever be done is done by a human or something a human creates. And so looking at people as though we're commodities is the first mistake. Human is a miracle. And what's nice about that is it doesn't scale. So if you're building Walmart, you don't get to benefit from the miracle that is humanity. You have to treat people like commodities because it's too big a business. And it's so for those of us that have small businesses, you get to benefit from the miracle of humanity. But here's what we do wrong. This is how we parent too, by the way. again, God forgive me, I'm going to do better at this, I promise. If you give somebody 10 things to do and they suck at 2 of them, and they're okay at 6, and they crush 2, do you know what we do as employers? We go focus on the 2 they suck at, and we build a performance improvement plan, and then we can't do this, and we're gonna get you there, bud. Don't worry. What we should be doing is you take everything off of their plate but the 2 that they're amazing at. It's Einstein's quote, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll spend its whole life thinking it's stupid.
Yes.
I had a friend message me this morning. He said, if I hire one of your executive assistants, I really want someone who's going to be an integrator for me. And the problem is it's the wrong paradigm. It's why I like executive assistants, because I get to give you 10 things. My first executive assistant became my director of social. My second executive assistant became my director of automation. My third executive assistant became my CTO. I didn't know Ari would be good at social, Julianne would be good at automation, or Yvonne would be good at everything, until I hired them and I started giving them tasks. It's like, forgive the analogy, it's like having a baby. You ever seen the parent who's like, oh, she's going to be a doctor? Okay, that poor child, right? Like, you're holding this little infant and you're telling yourself she's going to be a doctor. Maybe she's going to be an artist or an anthropologist or a convict. We don't know, right? Like, she's going to be and we're going to help grow this human into what she's meant to be. And that's what we're doing as employers. It's like, oh, I'm going to hire you and you're going to be this thing. Well, how about you hire the person, figure out where it is, on what level of analysis are they an absolute miracle, and then let them go do that thing. And I promise you it'll make you money. That's why we built Pareto Talent. It's called Pareto Talent because it's based off the Pareto distribution. The Pareto distribution it's the 80-20 rule. And y'all, the 80-20 rule is deadly. It's deadly in business and it's deadly in life. If you have 1,000 employees, 200 of them are doing 80% of the output. But it's true at every level of analysis. So zoom in on those 200. 40 of them are doing 80% of that work. Zoom in on those 40. 8 of them are doing 80% of that work. That means that one person in 1,000 employee organization is doing about 40% of the output. And so that's a hierarchy, right? That's the pyramid. And you go up the pyramid, you have more and more and more competent people. And what are the Harvard-trained Goldman Sachs? They try to flatten the hierarchy because they're afraid of the key man risk. And so they start to diversify risk, which really means they kill their peak performers. It's why corporate work is so soul-sucking, because you're not allowed to be a peak performer. Imagine us only building our pyramids with the material on the top of everybody else's pyramid. You're still going to have it, but you start off with massively more output. Sorry, I got a little passionate there.
No, I love it. Continue. I don't need you to, because I'm just, like I said, it's so.
I have a second framework.
Some extra. So I hope we're all enjoying it, not just me.
I'm even thinking about all the parallels, right? Because there's a lot of the stuff you're saying that applies to employees applies to clients, right? Clients aren't commodities. We should be trying to level our clients up. Our entire job as entrepreneurs is to get them where they're trying to go faster, easier, and more successfully than they could without us, right? It applies to us as entrepreneurs. We have these, like, I run into this all the time with these people that I'm like, you would be brilliant at X. Right. We even had this with Victoria for a minute because she was a really talented fractional CMO. And I'm like, I really think you're a very talented, very exceptionally, uniquely talented COO. And it took her a minute to really, do that. And they focus on the pieces that they're not good at every time that I'm like, this is what you're really, really good at. And they're like, but there's these 2 things. So I have to go fix those before I can be this. And it's like, why? Find someone else you can refer that to. Find someone else you can collaborate with. Like, I'm not going to be a mindset coach. I obviously am not going to be the one helping people build people systems. Like, I am fundamentally flawed at it. It is not my Neuro-Spicy superpower. I can design the business, but I'm not the one that can build it. Not it, right?
Speaking of this whole, thing, because, Christina has helped me so much, because the things that I know intuitively, to me, because when she said something or I see out there, and it's like, really, you think like that, and it's these constant going back, conversations, even though when she'll tell me, oh, something didn't work, and then I'll like, do it again. It's not going to work.
Oh, I can't sit here and do a weekly plan every week. After 2 weeks, I'm bored, and she's like, do it again. And I'm like, it's so boring. Do it again. Fine.
Because she'll be like, oh, it doesn't work, and I'm like, she has like about a 2-week boredom limit on stuff. And then it's like, it doesn't work. And I'm like, no, you're not working it. Just do it again until it gets to the point, and then she's like, oh, I've done this and I've done this and I've done this and I've done this. And then, of course, 5 minutes later, there's another issue. But the whole issue is, I think, leadership. I got, and you're talking about it from a leadership perspective and how you have to set the stage and set the culture and set this. 2 questions for you, because I'm really big on core in the very beginning, the core values, the mission, the vision, all of that, because I believe that that sets the stage for who you hire, the culture and everything, to make sure you get the right people in the beginning. That's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone thinks it's so doggone boring and they don't want to do it. What are your take on having that established early?
Oh, I think you hire to your values, train to your values, fire to your values. And I also think, and this is where maybe I get very aggressive values. So I think sometimes I don't like whiteboard values. I don't like boardroom values. I don't like, let's all get together and define our values. I think businesses need a leader, and the leader needs to define the value. That's where we start. Truth, responsibility, love. It's what I teach my children. Those are my values: truth, responsibility, love. And now I don't say, if you look at my website, it's heart, truth, responsibility, heart. Because if you tell your employees you love them, you sometimes get sued. Like there's some, some Epstein implications. But I do is the other piece. And I want to work with people who love. I want to work. And it's in that order, interestingly. Everybody thinks that love is first. It's not. Love without truth is blind, and love with intent. First, we're truthful. Once we're truthful, responsible with the truth. Once we're truthful and responsible, then we're loving. But you have to have all 3. Truth and responsibility without love is caustic. It's harsh and it's sharp and it's mean. And when I define those values and I say them over and over and over and over again, I used to have them up. We had our all hands call. They would actually be up on every slide every Friday. It got a little excessive. But what's nice about it is it let my staff know how to act when I wasn't there. So something happens with a client, something goes horribly wrong. Well, first, what's truthful? I had a young man spend $50,000. We're spending $100 million in ad spend. I'm actually surprised this didn't happen more often. But there was a mistake that was made, and he spent $50,000 that he shouldn't have spent, and the client didn't know. We could have got away with it, y'all. We could have just closed the book on that month, moved on, fixed the glitch. Even I could have myself integrous by ratcheting down their bill by whatever for make up the $50,000 or whatever. And there was this moment I could tell everybody was watching. They're like, all right, we spent this money. What do we do? I'm like, well, the first thing is we go tell the client the truth. And the whole world is talking all this shit, but are we really going to go walk into one of our biggest clients? I was in the middle of my exit, by the way. I'm trying to sell this business, and now there's the acquiring entity. And I'm going to have to tell them we made this horrible mistake. There's an 8-figure exit on the line. And I'm like, this is the truth. And it was one of the most profound experiences I've ever had as an. The confidence it inspired was massive. We were truthful. We were responsible. And what's nice is the acquiring entity, I got to go to them and I'm like, hey guys, we made this mistake. Here's how we're dealing with it. Oh, by the way, my business insurance covered 80% of it. So $40,000 of the $50,000, I didn't even come out of pocket with. And it's with my staff. It built such confidence with the client. They were pissed, obviously. But I remember getting on the phone with our point of contact at the client's organization. And when she found out about it, she thought we were going to, because we could have abdicated responsibility. There was a nomenclature issue that was actually their fault. So I could have pinned it on them. But I knew. It's on us. And we got on, and I could tell she was geared up for a fight. And all I said was, I'm so sorry. I can't imagine how frustrating this is for you. I'm so sorry. Truth, responsibility, love. And it paid off so massively. People still talked about it. It's been 2.5 years since that happened, 2 years since my exit, and it still comes up all the time. And they know how to act when I'm not there. They know how to act on my behalf. And then you have to fire to your values too. That's the thing that's so hard, because I've had amazing people that weren't value aligned, and you got to get rid of them. You're rowing a boat into very. This happens most often, I think, with sales organizations, because it's so easy.
Yeah.
The compromise to values happens at sales. Happens in what are you willing to say when you take somebody's money? So I couldn't agree with you more on the values thing. I actually include my values in the job description before I hire, and I'm always looking to me. in your job application or in the interview, if they bring up the values piece, that's always really, really important to me.
And you demonstrated that here, even in the beginning of the call, when you're talking about, we were saying you're being truthful, and I said compassionately truthful, and you just intuitively, just in talking about what you're doing, how to do it, you were demonstrating your own values, and it's so important for a leader to lead with that, because they're going to, at least in my opinion, your team is a reflection of your leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's so crucial. I did but between working with Christina, I realized that there are leaders who don't care, and there are leaders who care, but they just suck at leading, or they just don't have.
We know which one I am.
That way. They're the most compassionate. Like you talk about, she's brilliant over here, and she's the most compassionate, empathetic person.
Mm-hmm.
But this is just something that she struggles with in that. And I realized that, okay, just because they might have this doesn't mean they're a bad person. They just need help and support in the area that they're not the strongest in. And I think that's affirming for a lot of leaders, because if they're struggling, it's not because you're deficient. It just means that you could use the support in that area.
Yeah. I think that's one of the more powerful things that I ever see happen to entrepreneurs is when they realize they don't have to be good at everything and they don't have to know everything. Like the day that happens is the day we get to see them glow up.
Yeah.
Yeah. What'd you say, Kasim?
My favorite words are, I don't know. I don't want to know. Hey, Kasim, where do we keep the file on this? I don't know. Go ask Lindsay. Hey, Kasim, how do we? I have no idea. Go ask Jeff. Where does, I don't know. I don't know. Not how, to steal from Dan Sullivan. I don't want to know. And I'm, I've gotten really, I've built, not to sound arrogant, and hopefully this doesn't come across the wrong way, but I've built 5, 7, and 8-figure businesses. I built 5 of them. And the first one was such a nightmare. It took me 20 years. And then I got 4 right away, because and that's probably, I'm exaggerating a little bit, probably took me 15 years to get the first one. And then every subsequent one was just like, bam, 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 because it's a template, it's a formula. Yeah. And it's who, not how. Because if I tried to make an 8-figure business by myself, there's no way. But if I go find a bunch of who's, row the boat, and then I go move on to the next boat, that's easy.
A part of my framework was built on watching how you did that and getting to talk to you and to underscore how you were going about doing that, what you were moving from one business to the other. And what set me down the path of there's got to be a yellow brick road, a path that entrepreneurs can walk, because we all need to do the same things. And we all make the same mistakes. So it's why is this happening? You decide you want to be a doctor, you know exactly what your steps are, right? You have some choices to make along the way, but there's data on what the best schools are and the best programs are and what the pay is going to be. But there's nothing like that for entrepreneurs, right? But the first day that you said, I've never actually ran an ads campaign on my own, and I own one of the top ad companies, and I was like, what? How? Because I cannot even fathom selling something I don't know, or so that was a pivotal moment for me. That, and when you started describing how you did Neato marketing and how you set that up, and you found someone who was an expert in the thing, consulted with them, made them the face of it, but you did the businessy bit that everybody else sucks at, and just took somebody who knew what they were doing and said, here you go, you be the expert, I'll build the business. Right. And it was just,
well, and I don't want to be flippant about it. I didn't just build the biggest Google Ads agency. We built the best. And I think part of that came from the fact that I didn't know how to do it. And that allowed me to ask all the questions that were necessary to fill in the gaps that exist when you're dealing with nothing but experts. Because write and speak in shorthand. That's a fact. You ever been around a bunch of people that are all experts in the same thing? You're sitting at a table with a bunch of industrial engineers for whatever reason, and you don't know what the hell they're saying because it's shorthand acronym jargon. Well, what starts to happen when that happens is competence, that level of competence, they begin to leave behind the fundamentals. fundamentals. And it's the forgotten fundamentals that really, you know, it's free throws, right? Just to go back to the classic sports analogy. It's the things that experts don't like doing. Christina, it's the reason that you get bored and Victoria has to send you back and say, do it again, do it again, do it again, because you're so good at it that it feels boring. Well, when you're a dummy and you're not, for me, doing it again doesn't feel boring because I'm like, this is really exciting, guys. Like, this is, you know, it keeps it new and it keeps it fresh and it allows you to always have a fresh perspective. So,
thank you. I'm gonna write that down for when.
Nice. We got to write her downer.
Kasim said you have to do it again.
Christina's got to do it again.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna lean on that too, Kasim, because she loves you. I mean, I'm meeting you and I'm loving you too. But yeah, so you're gonna get. I'm gonna be leaning on you very heavily right now. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate y'all so much for having me on. I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk to you and your audience.
Yeah.
And Christina, I'm such a huge fan.
One thing I want to kind of wrap on real quick is we've talked about a lot of things that people need to do, but we haven't really hit on why they're not doing them, right? Like we can sit here and teach people things all day long, and most entrepreneurs, a lot of this isn't new to most people that are hearing it, right? They've heard it, maybe they're hearing it a different way, maybe it's landing and, you know, hitting a new way, which I hope and is good. But even when they know it, they tend to not do it, right? Why do we think people won't do these things? Like, why aren't we delegating effectively? Why aren't we building teams around us? Why are we trying to hold on to everything? What's
Alex
the best way to
Hormozi
get
has
out of our way?
something. Hormozi says that the reason people aren't buying from you, now you assume that you have something somebody needs. Assume that framework exists. I have a problem, you have a solution. The only reason I wouldn't buy is, right, which is that's an independent problem, or B, I don't believe it'll work.
Yeah, I think you cut out for that first
you said
one.
the number one reason that
sorry. Yeah,
so,
gobbledygook. Hormozi says that the only reason either A, they can't afford it, or B, they don't believe it'll work. And that can't afford it, that's a solvable problem. But it's the don't believe they will work. And if you really think about this, this is an offer like any other. It's an offer on how to function more effectively, how to do business differently, etc. And I think even though it makes sense logically, people don't believe it will work. Believe delegation's possible for them for whatever reason. They're broken, their employees are broken, it's not possible. And maybe they built an organization full of a bunch of lemmings that would be very difficult to delegate to at this point. And that's hard, right? It's hard to unscramble the scrambled eggs that is a business that you've built like that, but it's not impossible. And I really like what Melanie said. Start to get your reps in with ChatGPT. You just start to learn to delegate in a very low risk environment like that, because you teach yourself, oh, this is possible. And then once it's possible with ChatGPT, then you can go do that with, low risk tasks over here with this. I don't delegate tasks anymore. I delegate projects. That's my rule. If I'm delegating tasks, I'm too deep. I need to delegate the project, and the person working on the project can figure out the tasks. But I think, to answer your question as directly as I can, I think people don't do it because they don't believe it'll work. Because if they believed it would work, they would do it. Obvious belief that's really necessary.
Now, here's another weird one that seems to work really well, especially for some of us neurodivergent people. The fake assistant. What are your thoughts on that? Where you like set up a separate email, an office ad, a support ad, and you have like a fake person that it's really you're typing the emails, but it looks like another person. It's a different signature. It's a whatever. What are your thoughts on people that do that?
I think it's at that point. I think if you need that shield, there's probably some internal work that needs to be done around boundaries. That probably means you can't say no. So, right, generally speaking, you now have to enlist this fake person to say this thing that you don't want to say, and the fact that you don't want to say that's I think where the work resides. And I have those problems. Somebody tried to put a meeting together with me the other day, and the other person came back and said, "Hey, I'm working on a book to Q4," and I was so impressed. I was like, "Oh God, I wish I knew how to say those words." Because when people ask me for meetings, it doesn't matter how busy I am. I'm like, how do I get out of this? And I wish I had my assistant or whatever. Like, where's my gatekeeper? And I think we just need to go back to cultivating the skill set for ourselves to say, hey, I'm sure you're awesome. I'm not meeting right now. Love you, mean it, hope you're successful, etc. But this is a boundary for me at the moment, and it just is what it is. And I apologize sincerely. I have to hop. I've got my mastermind call now, and I've got a bunch of misfit millionaires to go babysit.
Thank you so
We
much.
appreciate you for being on.
Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Kasim. I think you're gonna have to come back again because it's you've dropped so many gems on us, and it's just there's so much more in here. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you all. Grateful.
Thanks.
Bye, guys. As always, make sure you head over to neurospicyacademy.com if you want to join us to get a lot more knowledge, experience, nuggets. Like if everything that you learned today feels like an uphill battle, like I want to do all that. It sounds good. I want to make that happen, but I don't even know where to start, right? I don't even know what my first steps are. That is literally what we do. The Neuro-Spicy Academy is get you to that point, to that level of success where things are easier, where things, you can make these decisions, where you have these team members that you're delegating to. So head over to neurospicyacademy.com, join today for free. I think it's still the 14-day trial, but I think we're about to be extending that to 30 days to give you guys plenty of time to step in, get to feel things, come to campus, meet your mentors, take advantage of the resources. So I look forward to seeing you there. And until next time, bye guys.